Hey folks, hopefully this is working well. It's been a while. It's been, I don't know, maybe 4 months since the last time I did this. A couple of things changed. Still doing .NET. I actually joined a company that is doing a lot of .NET and we're doing a lot of functional programming. I'm looking after a team of functional programmers. But that's not really the point. I haven't been doing much streaming and I'm looking to start doing a little bit more of this on a regular basis. But what I'd like to go through today is just some quick updates on developer experience. So as an engineering manager, I'm finding it, onboarding people onto Haskell and functional programming, it is a thing. It actually takes quite a bit of effort. And it's quite a lot of load on my seniors that are in my team right now. I've got other engineers who are crossing over and learning functional programming. It's got me thinking, what can we do to improve developer experience? Like, how can we make Haskell easy to learn? Now, there's some really good educational resources out there. There's the Data 61 functional programming course, which is awesome. There's Haskell book. There's so much information, but one of the hardest things I found personally to learn Haskell was actually like there's this information out there and it's from like 1989 and it's still good information. It's really hard to figure out, is this good information or is it not? And you kind of need a mentor. So it's got me thinking, how do I make it easier to hire and onboard Haskell developers, because we want to keep doing this? And at the same time, like, how do you figure out what is still good? Like, what is good knowledge? So that came to the idea of like, I'm building something called Haskell Guide. Now, Haskell Guide is essentially there's all this content out there that has been open sourced. It's released under Creative Commons. It's under permissive open source licenses, and they allow remixing of content. So it's got me thinking, it's like, what happens if we were to take existing content that exists with full acknowledgement and remix it as such, so there's a central point where people can, for the industry, can actually look and like, how do I use Haskell to build a Web 2.0 SaaS startup? So this is Haskell Guide. Hopefully the audio is coming through okay. I'd like to show you where we're up to. It's very much a work in progress. It's going to be a work in progress for probably the next year or so, upwards more. It's what I'm doing on the train. If I'm not on Twitter, I'm working on this thing now. It's been the last 3 or 4 months trying to figure out how to approach this problem. So hopefully things are working. Leave some comments if it's not. I'm running this off a MacBook Air. It's a very, very like quick setup. I don't have all my lights set up properly. Let's quickly head across. So yeah, I'm running a MacBook Air, but it's actually running Nix. I'm running Linux as a desktop these days. If you're interested in this type of thing, if you go to my GitHub account, GitHub, ghuntley, .files, NixOS, you'll see all my configuration files I use for running my desktop. That includes my Twitch configuration for doing Twitch on Windows and Mac and Linux. All right, so let's head across here. Cool. So FP Sid in Sydney is a very big meetup for functional programmers. There's actually there's a couple of different meetups in Australia that are like really like they cover towards the advanced demographic, and it's really intellectually stimulating. And did a quick lightning talk, so I'm just going to quickly go through some things here. Is because there's a group for the advanced demographic, there's not really a place for people who want to learn functional programming and want to actually learn how to cross over and become a functional programmer or do Haskell. There's not many opportunities out there in the world that's doing Haskell. So this is the creation of something called Sydney Haskell. And Sydney Haskell is a community where you could come and learn functional programming. Currently at the current company, we're going through and we're running 5 to 12 people every week through Haskell for the Data 61 course, which is sweet. In like coming weeks, we'd like to start opening that up to the general public. There's some things internally I've got to figure out how to make that work. But I would love to actually start having other people in Sydney from other programming languages. If you want to come learn Haskell, we've got some of the best mentors in the country, so just come. But having said that, there's quite a lot of load on the mentors to learn and like to help teach Haskell. So this is the idea of Haskell Guide. And the idea of Haskell Guide is to create like a modern learning experience. GitHub has this education product, and that's GitHub Education or GitHub Classroom. I'll just show that to you really quickly. Yeah, so this is GitHub Classroom. So GitHub Classroom is this like really cool product that's typically used by educators. And I was starting to think, well, what happens if we were to use GitHub Classroom outside of the education context of like a university or a high school, and we started using it as a way of using it to teach Haskell. So if people were to go to like haskellguide.com/invite, they automatically get sent an invitation to join our GitHub organization. And as soon as you're in the GitHub organization, it actually unlocks the GitHub Classroom product. And this is really cool. It provides a whole bunch of tooling for like people to review work, and it's CI/CD, and it's optimized around like tooling around for like a teacher's assistant, a TA. So this will be an easier way for us to actually track the progress of people learning Haskell. The Data61 course is amazing, but it's designed to be taught. So the idea here is we take how it's meant to be taught exactly as it is, and we just cut it into individual modules and then put them into GitHub Classroom. And then when someone joins the organization, what occurs is they get their own private copy of that. And if they're committing to it, committing to the repo and pushing their progress, then the automation from GitHub Classroom, we can actually measure and see how like the progression and see if someone needs help. It means that if you're teaching like a large group of like 5 or 12 or in a classroom of 30, something new, like functional programming that's new to them, you often find that a large amount of people will actually just get stuck really fast because their brains get overloaded. So I'm hoping by cutting this into smaller modules and allowing people to do this asynchronously, we're going to get better experiences. So that's like the GitHub Classroom type of things. The next thing is building out is essentially a study plan. If you go to github.com/haskellguide, this is something an idea that's been remixed from there's a study plan for computer science to take someone from a web developer and turn them into a software engineer. It goes through everything you need to know for to succeed in a whiteboard coding interview. So the idea is, well, what happens if we would take the existing education that exists and we create people a study plan, and they can just like go through it like asynchronously at their leisure. It's a multi-week plan where they go top to bottom and they just tick off checkboxes as they proceed, and they'll just learn. And then once that happens, the next step from here is to actually start taking some of the Data61 material and the other materials and just remixing them and making it really buttery smooth. So I'll give you an example of that. This is a syntax module. The Data61 course unfortunately doesn't have much in the way of a syntax module. It's kind of taught in about 15 minutes and then proceed. But if someone is like picking up the Data61 course and they haven't had the chance to sit with the Data61 folks, they're not going to have that's been missing, and that's like a hindrance to people learning, in my experience and the feedback I've been getting. So the idea is we create like this module, and this is kind of like the most developed one so far, and it's generally just like hey, welcome, this is the first module of this, and like this is the key thing, right in the center there. It goes, no software installation is required at any stage. This is really important. We don't want people thinking about Cabal, Stack, Mafia, and all these different things like Mac, Windows, etc. We just don't want any of that stuff. So this is the suggestion that came from Christoph in the F# community. He tipped me off about Gitpod. Gitpod is really cool. I want to show it to you. So the idea is, yeah, you go top to bottom of the study plan, you check box off that you're doing it. We have to get, it's backed by the GitHub Classroom product, so we can monitor how people are progressing. And then, like, we always have full acknowledgements because we're remixing existing content. The entire idea here is to move the content to be consistent in tone and voice. I don't have a style guide defined yet, but that way it's not jarring. Like the content is accessible, but it's factually accurate. It's very important that it's factually accurate. Like we don't want like burrito analogies for monads. If that's not the right thing, we shouldn't do that. Right? Send pull request in if something's wrong. Let's get this factually accurate, but the content should be accessible. So meaning no assumed knowledge. So this is Gitpod, and I'm so glad Christoph sent in Gitpod and introduced it to me. So there's this little button down at the bottom right-hand corner for Gitpod, and if you click that button, what it does is it actually spins up it's not Visual Studio Code, but it very much is like Visual Studio Code. It supports the language server protocol, the LSP, and what's really cool is I've created a whole bunch of Docker templates, and these Docker templates are over here. My MacBook Air is kind of like struggling, it's a 2010 edition. Yeah, so in this Docker templates directory, you'll see a whole bunch of Docker images for different versions of GHC. We use Nix under the hood because I'm a Nix person. And as this loads up, when you click on that button, what it's actually doing is it's starting up a web-based IDE. And this is running on their infrastructure. I'm guessing behind the scenes, it's basically booted up these Docker images that I've created on their Kubernetes cluster. However they're doing it, it's magical. So yeah, so the user is actually, so the student, when they're learning, they get a copy of the repository. It's their own repository. They can commit to it because it's their own fork under the Haskell guide, organization. And this is when we start going into looking at the existing course content for Data 61. We start at like doing exactly one, and then we move on to a validation. And what's really cool is because this supports the language server protocol, Gitpod supports it. We can use Haskell IDE engine, which is very, very similar to the VS Code. Like if we get that all working, that means we've got Hoogle working, we've got IntelliSense, we've got GoToDefinition, we've got refactoring. Basically, we can start teaching Haskell in a classroom, and people no longer need to download anything. They don't need to do anything. They just need to click on a button, and they get a full workspace. They get full workspace for Haskell installed, and likewise, they can do full command line experience. So that's kind of what I've been up to for the last 3 or 4 months. Sorry for going a little bit dark. But yeah, if you have content and you like this idea of like working towards and making like Haskell more accessible for industry and like showcasing how it's being used in industry, not interested in forking ecosystems or any drama, I'm just looking at making it easier to onboard people into my team and to continue onboarding people to my team. Thanks for tuning in. I've got to bounce, but I want to start doing this weekly or bi-weekly. This is going to be the ongoing and enduring theme for the stream. It's just going to be building out education material for Haskell to make it easy to learn because it's cool. All right, thanks for tuning in.